Aubrey, and welcome to Stars and Bars, where we analyze your favorite artists' astrological charts and interpret how astrology plays out in their music, lyrics, and career. And if you're new here and that sounds interesting to you, feel free to hit the subscribe button so you never miss a video, and tell me in the comments who you want to learn about next. Our subject today is a jack of all trades if I've ever seen one. He has been on all sides of music making, from DJing to production to writing to video treatments to singing and rapping. He's also been on all sides of the screen and stage, writing for a show before creating his own TV show and acting in huge films. He's even a stand-up comedian. He has won 2 BET Awards, 5 Grammys, 3 VMAs, and much more, and always keeps his audience on the edge of their seats as to what he will do next. Today, of course, we are talking about Donald Glover, also known as Childish Gambino. Here is Donald Glover's chart. He is a Libra sun, Taurus moon with a Virgo rising. His Mercury is in Virgo, and his Venus and Mars are both in Leo. His chart is Earth dominant, and Mercury is his chart ruler as well as his dominant planet. One trait I see quickly in this chart is a struggle with money. We can see this by looking at the second house of money and possessions. Donald has both Saturn and Pluto in this house. Saturn and Pluto are both known as malefic planets, meaning they bring destruction or difficulty in the area of life that they affect. Now, while it's very unlikely that Bino is struggling for money these days, his lyrics certainly tell of a less well-off Donald from his childhood. Another placement I see is Moon opposite Saturn. Since the zodiac wheel is, well, a circle, it is 360 degrees around. The opposition is an aspect that looks and presents pretty much exactly how it sounds. The two planets are opposite each other on the zodiac wheel, meaning they're approximately 180 degrees apart. The opposition is a challenging aspect. It means that there is a sense of disharmony between the two planets involved. And when Moon opposes Saturn, the native may experience social isolation, another thing Donald discusses in his lyrics. The final trait I want to dig into in Donald Glover's lyrics is passion for fighting for worthy causes. This is represented by his Mars trine Neptune aspect. From the beginning of his discography, Donald shows us that there are causes that he is interested in fighting for, and he grows a bit of an activism bone over the course of his career. So those are our traits in the bars for today. We've got the Saturn and Pluto in the second house showing a money struggle. We have the Moon opposite Saturn aspect showing isolation. And we have the Mars trine Neptune aspect, which shows activism or a passion for fighting for worthy causes. But before we get into the lyrics, let's talk about Donald Glover's career through our astrological lens. Donald Glover is renowned as a skilled writer, from his clever and impactful lyrics to his hilarious writing on shows like 30 Rock and his own show Atlanta, as well as his stand-up comedy. He actually has multiple astrological placements that contribute to this talent. The first of these is his Jupiter in the third house. The third house is the house of communication, so it's really no surprise that this house rules talking and writing. Jupiter is an expanding planet that brings good luck and talent in the areas that it is in the chart. So a native with Jupiter in the third house tends to be colloquially skilled, as well as able to manifest good fortune through communication and speaking or writing. Along with being in the third house, Donald's Jupiter is also in Sagittarius, which is the sign that Jupiter rules. When a planet is in the sign that it rules, also known as being in its dominion, it strengthens even further the power of that planet. So that just increases the amount of lyrical and colloquial skill that Donald has. And this is why I believe that he's no longer struggling with money as well. He found his Jupiter bestowed talent and manifested good fortune. Speaking of dominion, another planet Bino has at home is Mercury. Mercury is the planet of communication. It rules Virgo as well as Gemini, but he has it in Virgo. Mercury's dominion placement adds even further to Donald Glover's ability to speak and write masterfully. And if you've been here before, you probably know that around this time I like to look at the midheaven of our subject. The midheaven is an angle, it is the cusp of your 10th house of career, and the midheaven angle can show us the person's career situation. Donald Glover's midheaven is in Gemini, which is just about as fitting as it could possibly be, in my opinion. We mentioned earlier how Gemini is ruled by Mercury. Gemini is considered the sign of communication. Having his midheaven here, it makes a lot of sense that wordplay, jokes, and impactful diction are all very large parts of all of Donald Glover's various careers. Gemini is also a very scatterbrain energy that often has an array of various skills, interests, and projects at any given time. This is obviously very representative of Donald Glover's career. He wears many hats. He's a lyricist, a performer, a director, a producer, a DJ, screenplay writer, TV show writer, movie and TV actor, stand-up comedian, activist, father, husband. He truly is just about as Gemini midheaven as it gets. Finally, another quick but interesting thing I found when researching for this video is that Venus trine Neptune, an aspect Donald Glover does happen to have, can give the native a wide vocal range. And, well, if you've heard some of Donald Glover's more melodic music, you definitely know that this is something that is true about him. So for the sake of simplicity, I will not be going through all 14 of Childish Gambino's mixtapes. I will just be discussing his main works. So the first pair from our list from earlier is Donald's struggle with money in his adolescence as bestowed by his Saturn and Pluto in the second house. Childish Gambino's first album, 2011's Camp, is about a summer camp experience and more specifically falling in love with a girl at summer camp and ending up embarrassed. I mostly see Bino's loving but self-conscious Leo Venus on this album. He also does bring a lot of attention to the struggle with money that we're talking about right now. The first track, Outside, discusses how things used to be for Donald and how things have changed. He brings attention to the budget living situation he grew up in, wherein moving to the projects was considered an upgrade. He also says, I used to wake up in a bed between my mom and aunt, and says his dad is saving up money so that their family could get their own place. Many more descriptions of their lifestyle exist in this song as well. The next track, Firefly, also discusses Donald's unwealthy upbringing, saying, looking for quarters, maybe afford a falafel for dinner. It's mentioned again on Hold You Down, where he says, my mama said she'd get me that new jacket when the costs go down, hit the office, stole some Tommy Hill from Lost and Found. A few lines later, Donald says, listening to Sky's the Limit on my Walkman, thinking if Biggie can make it through it, man, then I can. Sky's the Limit discusses Biggie's brokenness as an adolescent, and Donald identifies with that song because he had a similar upbringing. Childish Gambino's second album, Because the Internet, from 2013, is inspired by how much technology, including the internet, has changed our lives. Mercury is Donald's dominant planet as well as his ruling planet, and also the planet of technology, so I think conceptually this album highlights his Gemini Virgo Mercury placements the most. Because the internet tells the story of a kid whose name for the purpose of the story is just the boy, who is Rick Ross's son. Believe it or not, we don't really see money struggle on this album. It's about a character, a protagonist who doesn't even represent Donald Glover or Childish Gambino. And yeah, he was not brought up in the same way. Some quotes that show this include, I'm born rich, life ain't fair, and you only come around when you want to play pool or my hot tub on this album. So yeah, not broke, you get it. Childish Gambino's third major project, 2014 Stone Mountain / Kauai, is a two-part project consisting of Stone Mountain, a free mixtape, and Kauai, an EP, from which all proceeds go to maintaining the Hawaiian island of Kauai. That aspect of this album makes me think of Donald's Mars trine Neptune, which causes him to be interested in activism and fighting for worthy causes. This island is obviously very precious to him, and it's very important to him that it stays intact and managed. Thematically, Stone Mountain is a lot of braggadocio and punchlines, highlighting more than anything Donald's Mercury placements, as well as his Leo placements, as Leo can be a self-centered sign, some would say. The Kawaii half is more of a romantic, beachy, feel-good album, and that talks a lot more to Donald's Venus-ruled Libra Sun and Taurus Moon. You Don't Have to Call from the Stone Mountain half of this project makes a reference to the struggle men and children, including little Donald experience, stating 10% of a foster home trying to Cinderella this shit, explaining the rags to riches lifestyle progression he hopes to create for himself. Moving on to 2016's Awaken My Love, Childish Gambino's third studio album takes a turn from mostly rap and pop sounds to a 70s-inspired R&B sound with lots of soul. The passion in the sound and theme speaks to Donald's fiery but tender Venus in Leo. This album also takes on a lyrical turn. Childish Gambino's previous albums are jam-packed with lyrical content, but Awaken My Love's tracks make their point with fewer lyrics in exchange for a sound that is impactful in a new way. Awaken My Love doesn't really discuss money nor Donald's upbringing, as it's mostly an album of stories and romantic songs, as well as songs addressing Donald's firstborn son. Due to this theme, this is another album that just doesn't really touch on money or Donald's relationship with it. And Childish Gambino's fourth studio album, 2020's Donald Glover Presents, was released in the form of a live stream on DonaldGloverPresents.com that was taken down shortly after its release. Despite the title, as far as we know, this album is under the name Childish Gambino still, but it is not available anywhere we can really look at the information at the time of this video's creation. I also had some technical issues as far as listening to this album. I was really only able to hear about half of it before it was taken down, and I was not able to find a very good version online that seemed legitimate so that I could re-listen to it. So I don't really feel prepared to discuss the overall sound of the album until we get an official version of it released that we can listen to more than once. This album doesn't talk a whole lot about Donald himself at all, at least not much about his upbringing nor his financial situation, so this one also doesn't really touch on this placement or trait as much as his early albums. I think some of this is due to the progression of his lyrical content from lyrical to metaphorical over the course of his career, as well as the sheer amount of time between those projects, and now he's moved on to a more currently relevant type of content, and he's further and further away from when he was broke. Our second placement from our list is Moon opposite Saturn, and the corresponding trait there is social isolation. Childish Gambino describes being socially isolated pretty frequently and in many different ways, from loneliness to bullying. Bonfire goes into more detail about detractors' attempts to isolate him as a rapper, saying, "Told me I should just quit. First of all, you talk white. Second off, you talk like you haven't given up yet." At this time in Bino's life, it seems like people will aim at just about any trait of his in an attempt to isolate him from other Atlanta rappers. This makes a lot of sense for someone whose moon and Saturn oppose one another. All the Shine also describes Bino's isolation within the music world, stating that someone in the industry told him, "I'd get you MTV if I could, man, but Pitchfork only likes rappers who are crazy or hood." Later, he says, "I always wanted to get picked on the cool team, but alone is exactly how I should be, which sounds really sad at first, but when I think about the success Donald has found without a team, I think that there's some positivity to that line. So I'm not sure whether it was intended to be negative at the beginning, but I do think that it has aged well. Quite probably my favorite of Childish Gambino's references to isolation is in Sunrise, which refers to his music as something for these black kids to call they own, so when you skating in your driveway, you not alone. He targets a part of his audience that he really does it for, kids who can relate to him, who grew up like he did, and felt the same brands of isolation that he felt growing up. I think that line is just really wholesome and really powerful. The three songs we talked about in the first category also have some great examples of isolation. I try not to be too repetitive, but I really do want to quickly talk about them, so I'm just going to run through them real quick. The first of them is Outside, where Donald discusses bullying, as well as his lifestyle and how it isolated him from his peers. The next is Firefly, which discusses bullying as well and how his musical style and preferences and his race isolate him as an artist. Finally, more bullying is referenced in Hold You Down, making camp and album absolutely packed with isolation references. Let's see how the other albums measure up. On Sweatpants from Because the Internet, Bino says, "Rich kid asshole, paint me as a villain." Like we talked about earlier, Because the Internet reflects a character that is not Donald Glover himself, but the theme of being isolated remains important to his writing and is still on his mind artistically, so I do feel that's still relevant. A similar concept applies to the line in 3005 that says, "Got a house full of homies, why it feels so the opposite." This line, of course, describes internal, perceived isolation as opposed to physical or blatant interpersonal isolation, and could easily be something Donald has felt, in addition to the character, the boy. Later, he says, "Emily, Pham, and Lorenzo, all of those people my kinfolk, least I think so. Can't tell, 'cause when them checks clear, they're not here, 'cause they don't care." Now, Emily, Pham, and Lorenzo are Donald Glover's real-life friends, so maybe there's some blurring of the character speaker line there, or maybe they're just names that he used, but it sure seems like it could be relevant. On Life, the Biggest Troll, Bino says, "Hold up, it's the kid, quick, tell him he can't sit with us, fuck it, got money, bought friends like I'm TBS," which seems to reflect both adolescent Donald and the boy. Based on previous lyrics we've discussed, Donald was definitely subject to isolation and bullying as a kid. On the first part of Move That Dope / Nextel Chirp / Let Your Hair Blow off the Stone Mountain half of Stone Mountain / Kauai, we hear more about how Childish Gambino has been isolated and ignored as an artist. They used to not pay him, no never mind, these numbers don't ever lie. The second line brings attention to the fact that now, as in when this project and song came out, Childish Gambino is all but a household name and holds major weight in the rap world. On Sober, on the Kauai half, the chorus says, "And now that it's over, I'll never be sober," describing the loneliness aspect of being isolated, in this case romantically. Similarly to the first category, Awaken My Love doesn't really touch on Donald's past or isolation much at all. It's more current stories about Donald's son and his mother, with a few abstract concept songs mixed in. On Donald Glover Presents, Why Go to the Party touches heavily on loneliness, saying, "Bliss is a cheap emotion everyone here seems to afford, so I don't know why I'm here without you," as well as, "When you're not invited, you take what you're given, I miss you." And finally, "It's hard for me to love myself without you here, I wonder when I'll feel your smile." Whomever this is about, Donald appears very hurt to be isolated from them. Our third and final placement trait pair for today is Donald Glover's interest in activism and fighting for worthy causes, bestowed upon him astrologically by his Mars trine Neptune aspect. One cause we often see Childish Gambino lyrically fighting for is the fact that African Americans can do and be whatever and whomever they want. The first example of this in the first album is on the first track that we've already discussed some outside. He talks about his cousin and uncle who turned to the streets and drug dealing, and he addresses the cousin saying, "Street took you over, the world's saying what you are because you're young and black, don't believe them. You're still that kid who kept the older boys from teasing." He encourages young black men who have gone down a hard path to remember their life can take any path that they want it to. Another cause Donald believes in is all artists, even ATL rappers with an expectation to be edgy or hard, being allowed to express themselves however they want. On All the Shine, he says, "I'm not trying to come hard, I'm trying to come me. That's why these older songs I used to make I'd release free. What's the point of rap if you can't be yourself?" He then refers to himself as a role model for talking about real shit instead of just hood shit. Similar to the Outside reference, Backpackers has some generally empowering lyric meant to remind African Americans what they're capable of. He says, "They real black, take shit, turn it into gold. I'm real black, I survive with the pressure on." If it's not obvious, it's extremely important to Childish Gambino that black kids live up to their full potential and remember what they have already overcome just by being African Americans in a society that shows preference to white people. Hold You Down also speaks on racial oppression and stereotypes, similar to the Outside reference from a couple minutes ago. He says, "Culture shock at barbershops, 'cause I ain't hood enough. We all look the same to the cops, ain't that good enough? The Black experience is black and serious, 'cause being black, my experience is no one hearing us. White kids get to wear whatever hat they want. When it comes to black kids, one size fits all. I know that was a long quote, but I feel like what he's saying there is really impactful and important, especially in the context of Donald Glover's activism. He once again highlights how African Americans are expected to act a certain way, resulting in isolation even from other African Americans. I didn't talk about this song in the isolation category though, because I feel like race, racial stereotypes, and the systematic oppression of minorities are unrelated to astrology. But in the context of causes Childish Gambino fights for, lyrically, this definitely applies there. Now, Camp, and therefore all the songs we just talked about, all came out well before the Black Lives Matter movement that renewed a sense of responsibility for many African Americans to bring attention to these racially charged issues. But if we fast forward to Awaken My Love's song, Have Some Love, which came out in the heat of the movement, we see Childish Gambino's thoughts on the topic now that it is more publicized. He says, have a word for your brother, have some time for one another, really love one another, it's so hard to find. Childish Gambino calls for unification and love instead of prejudice and hate. And finally, last but absolutely not least, the most recent and arguably most impactful example of Childish Gambino's knack for activism is his 2018 single and accompanying video, This Is America. Here we see Donald's fully developed viewpoint on racism in America, and believe it or not, he does not appear to be thrilled about it. It discusses American issues such as gun violence, mass shootings, and racism in the lyrics, and uses visual symbolism in the video to further solidify his point. It debuted at #1, as well as winning the Grammys that year for both Song and Record of the Year, so I think it's safe to say that he made his point. Now let's take a closer look. Before we get into the lyrics, I just want to point out that simple wording is an important part of the point being made on this song about blissful ignorance and complacency, so don't let the short sentences convince you that he's not saying anything meaningful. Some important lyrics include police be trippin' now, yeah, this is America, guns in my area, and some references to reparations for slavery, including the repeated phrase, get your money, black man, and Young Thug's line, America, I just checked my following list, and you motherfuckers owe me. The video employs lots of violent and historical imagery to highlight Donald's ideas. Childish Gambino performs multiple viral internet dance moves throughout the video, as well as shooting people dead with no consequence, symbolizing his message that gun violence is a problem that is often ignored in favor of gun rights. He assumes famous Jim Crow poses and visually implies police brutality as a part of his point. There is a lot of symbolism in this video. There's a lot of symbolism that I didn't understand. There's a lot that I didn't get to. It's a truly powerful video. And if you haven't contributed one of its 647 million views so far, you should definitely check it out. It is linked in the description. And that's where we're going to call it today. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave me a comment telling me what you think and what is your favorite Childish Gambino album. Who do you want to learn about next? Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. And until next time, have a great rest of your day.